You know, when you watch a massive stage illusion, like a really spectacular magic trick.
Right, where everyone is just kind of staring at the wand.
Exactly. You were completely mesmerized by the sparks and the flash and just the incredible spectacle happening right in front of your eyes.
I mean, the human brain is practically hardwired to follow that bright light, the sudden movement. The entire design of the performance is built to keep your attention totally on that surface level magic.
But if you actually want to know how the trick works, you have to force yourself to look away from the flash.
Yeah, you have to look into the shadows.
Right at the stagehands. You have to look at the trapdoors, the heavy pulleys, the people sweating behind the heavy velvet curtain, moving thousands of pounds of steel and equipment in the dark.
Because to understand the illusion, you really have to examine the raw, physical, and frankly, incredibly messy mechanics that support it.
And that is exactly where we find ourselves today with artificial intelligence. We are finally looking behind the curtain to see the heavy machinery.
So welcome to today's deep dive. Glad to be here. We have a lot to cover.
We really do. We are unpacking a brilliant, incredibly dense, and eye-opening dispatch from the widely respected tech-reader.blog. This was penned by Aaron Rose on July 20, 2026.
It's a fantastic piece of writing.
It is. And the mission for you, the listener, is simple today. We are cutting through the absolute noise of mid-2026 AI headlines to understand the underlying tectonic shifts that are reshaping the global technology landscape right now.
Yeah, and reading through this dispatch, it is abundantly clear that the industry has, well, it's fully exited the hype phase.
Oh, completely.
We're no longer just marveling at chatbots writing sonnets or, generating funny images. The parlor tricks are over.
We are officially in the brutal, high-stakes restructuring phase. Tens of thousands of jobs and hundreds of billions of dollars are quite literally moving overnight.
Literally overnight.
We are looking at aggressive European regulations tearing down old monopolies, these staggering physical infrastructure bets, and a rapidly escalating global arms race in open-weight models.
It's a massive, multi-front redistribution of power and capital happening in real time. And it's fundamentally altering who controls the digital world.
Okay, so let's unpack this by starting right at the top of the digital food chain. Because the biggest player in the game is suddenly being forced to, well, share its lunch.
Yeah, the European Commission just dropped a massive regulatory hammer on Google.
Under the Digital Markets Act, right? The DMA.
It's exactly, the DMA. They are ordering Google to essentially open up the Android operating system to third-party AI assistants.
And the technical details here are what make this a structural earthquake.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just about allowing a competitor's app to sit on your home screen. That's what people get wrong.
Right. So by July 2027, competing AI developers who meet certification will get deep systemic integration.
We're talking about default voice activation and seamless cross-app capabilities across 11 different Android feature groups.
So to put that in perspective for you, if you are an Android user, this means you wouldn't just, use a third-party AI by opening its specific app.
Right. You could make it your underlying system assistant.
Exactly. You could read your screen, pull context from your emails, draft a text, interface with your calendar, all seamlessly, completely bypassing Google's proprietary assistant.
It totally shatters the default placement barrier. I mean, historically, if a startup built a demonstrably better, smarter AI assistant, it didn't really matter.
Because overcoming that friction was impossible.
Right. Convincing a user to manually replace the default assistant baked into their phone's operating system, nearly impossible. But the DMA order forcibly removes that friction.
But the mandate goes even further than just the phone integration, which is wild.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, so by January 2027, Google has to share anonymized ranking, query, click, and view search data with competing developers on what the EU calls fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory terms.
We need to pause on that for a second, because that data is the absolute lifeblood of the modern internet.
It's everything.
Google's ultimate advantage in AI was never just having a smart engineering team or a massive compute cluster.
No, it was their two-decade monopoly on human search behavior.
Exactly. Knowing exactly what billions of people look for, what links they click, how long they view a page, that provides the most valuable training and ranking signal in existence.
And that feedback loop has lived exclusively inside Google's walled garden since, the late 1990s?
Yep, pretty much.
It's basically a rigged game of Monopoly.
Yeah.
Imagine you're playing, and one player owns Boardwalk, Park Place, the utilities, the bank, everything.
They own the board.
Right. Then the rulemaker steps in and says, actually, you have to let everyone else build their hotels on your properties for fair price. Oh, and you have to hand over your secret notebook where you've tracked every single dice roll and strategy for the last 20 years.
The secret notebook is the perfect way to visualize that search data. Naturally, Google's president of global affairs, Kent Walker, is arguing that forcing this level of deep integration and data sharing fundamentally undermines user privacy and device security.
Which, I mean, that is the standard defense.
Of course it is.
But the market isn't buying the defense. The market is looking at the threat. Alphabet shares dropped roughly 4% immediately after this.
And this legal blow coincides with reports that they've missed their internal deadline for the Gemini 3.5 Pro model for the fourth time.
The fourth time. Wow. So the EU just put a hard expiration date on Google's distribution mode.
They really did. As Aaron Rose notes in the dispatch, the 2027 deadlines do give Google some runway to adapt.
Right.
And they certainly have the resources to eventually ship a highly competitive model despite those Gemini delays. But the structural advantages that were supposed to cushion those delays, exclusive hardware distribution and proprietary behavioral data, those are evaporating.
And if the software moat is legally evaporating and governments are forcing digital monopolies to share their data, well, the new monopoly has to be built on something regulators can't easily force you to hand over.
It has to be built in the physical world.
Right. It moves to copper, concrete, cooling systems, and the raw power grid.
Which brings us to a truly staggering pivot in this dispatch.
Oh man, this next part. We are moving from the legal battles over software to the visceral, human, and physical costs of building AI data centers. The dispatch details an absolutely massive move by Oracle.
Yeah.
They are cutting up to 30,000 jobs. 30,000.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that number.
That is 18% of their entire workforce.
And the cuts are reportedly hitting legacy and traditional lines, specifically Oracle Health, broad cloud infrastructure roles, and their consulting divisions.
And they are doing this to free up, what, between $8 and $10 billion in annual cash flow?
Right, yeah, 8 to 10 billion.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second because this is just mind-boggling to me. They are gutting traditional departments and firing 30,000 people just to build data centers.
Basically, yes.
Is Oracle even a software company anymore? Or are they morphing into a heavily leveraged commercial real estate and power utility company?
The cold, hard math of the situation leans heavily toward the latter. I mean, this is the starkest illustration we have of what gigawatt-scale AI infrastructure actually demands.
It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. When we casually talk about tech giants spending hundreds of billions of dollars on AI compute, that capital isn't materializing from thin air. It is being extracted directly from existing human workforces and legacy business lines.
Aaron Rose's dispatch says it perfectly. He wrote, 30,000 people paid for Oracle's bet on Stargate. That belongs in the first sentence of every analysis.
It's a brutal reality.
So let's talk about Stargate, because the sheer scale is hard to comprehend. This is a $500 billion initiative partnered with OpenAI and SoftBank.
$500 billion.
Insane. And Oracle's specific anchor in this project is a $300 billion 5-year cloud contract to build 4.5 gigawatts of data center capacity.
Just to give you a sense of scale, right? 4.5 gigawatts is not a server farm. 1 gigawatt can power roughly a mid-sized American city.
Wait, really? A whole city?
Yeah. So Oracle is effectively building the electrical and physical equivalent of several major metropolitan areas solely dedicated to housing AI servers.
Wow. And they expect this infrastructure to generate roughly $30 billion a year in revenue.
But the risk is entirely concentrated, which is the terrifying part.
Right. A traditional software consulting firm has thousands of clients. Oracle's future returns on this massive physical bet seem entirely dependent on one single customer.
OpenAI.
Yeah, OpenAI.
Oracle is essentially betting the house on OpenAI's pre-IPO growth projections and their revenue durability. If OpenAI continues its trajectory and its revenue materializes exactly as projected,
then Oracle's ruthless pivot is a corporate masterstroke.
Exactly. They secure a massive long-term infrastructure revenue stream that no software competitor can easily replicate.
But OpenAI is heading into a September IPO facing multiple really active legal minefields.
Very active.
The dispatch specifically calls out the New York Times sanctions motion over copyright and the Apple trade secret lawsuits, which just deepened last week.
So what happens if OpenAI falters? Or if those lawsuits severely restrict their models?
Then Oracle is left holding the bag. They would have a fractured legacy workforce, devastated consulting divisions, and a colossal infrastructure bill for gigawatts of power that they just cannot monetize.
The traditional ROI model of software, build it once, sell it infinitely, that's been replaced by a brutal capital expenditure model.
So Oracle is building city-sized compute clusters for OpenAI. But it raises a really practical question for you, the listener, who might be working at a mid-sized company or an enterprise right now. What are enterprises actually spending this massive amount of compute on today?
Right, because the most immediate existential enterprise use case isn't generating marketing copy or having it write your emails.
Oh.
It is defending against AI by using AI. The cybersecurity threat landscape is just forcing the issue.
And the dispatch highlights Microsoft's new Project Perception.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
It is an AI cybersecurity platform that continuously scans code, cloud infrastructure, and endpoints across an entire enterprise. But the reason they have to do this is because of threats like JDA, which the dispatch notes demonstrated autonomous ransomware back in June.
And autonomous ransomware changes the entire paradigm of cybersecurity.
How so?
Well, traditionally, malware enters a system and kind of waits for instructions from a human operator via a command and control server.
Right.
Autonomous ransomware like JDA acts more like a liquid. It explores the network, identifies vulnerabilities, writes novel exploits to pivot to new servers, and executes encryption all without ever phoning home for instructions.
So it is attacking at machine speed.
Exactly. Human defenders, no matter how skilled they are, simply cannot react fast enough to a threat that is constantly rewriting its own attack vectors in milliseconds.
You need machine speed defensive tooling just to tread water at this point.
Which brings us back to Microsoft's Project Perception. The fascinating architectural shift here isn't just that it uses AI to fight AI, it's the orchestration layer.
The platform routes different defensive tasks across various models, from Microsoft, OpenAI, and Anthropic.
Right, so instead of just buying one massive AI model to protect the whole company, they are mixing and matching.
Because the economics of AI dictate this approach. I mean, if an enterprise tried to run a massive complex reasoning model like a GPT-4 or its equivalent on every single log file, every incoming email, every line of code continuously,
the compute costs would literally bankrupt the company before the hackers even breach the perimeter.
it's basically a hospital triage system. You don't send your most expensive, highly specialized neurosurgeon out to the emergency room waiting area to check a scraped knee or take a temperature.
Right. The misallocation of resources would crash the hospital's operations immediately.
You use the triage nurses, the lower cost, highly efficient, faster AI models, to do the continuous intake. They scan the network, check the vitals, inventory the systems. You only page the heavy-duty, complex reasoning models, the neurosurgeons, when the triage models flag a deeply complex, novel vulnerability that actually requires advanced mitigation.
And that multi-model architecture is really the only way continuous scanning becomes economically viable.
And it is already yielding results. The dispatch notes Microsoft used AI assistants to help fix 570 vulnerabilities in their July patch Tuesday alone.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Anthropic's security-focused model, Project Glasswing, has rapidly expanded to 150 organizations across 15 countries.
So the entire AI security acquisition market has essentially tripled year over year. The takeaway here isn't really about vendor A beating vendor B.
No, the major labs are all converging on the exact same architecture. Cheap models for continuous triage, heavy models for complex reasoning, and human review for final production changes.
The winner will just be whoever can orchestrate that system the most efficiently.
Okay, so while U.S. tech giants like Microsoft, OpenAI, and Oracle are focused on this high-stakes game of enterprise orchestration and massive infrastructure, the rest of the world isn't just sitting still.
Not at all. They are actively maneuvering to ensure they are not reliant on Western corporate dominance.
Let's shift our focus to the global stage for a bit. The 2026 World Artificial Intelligence Conference, or WAIC, just wrapped up in Shanghai, and the scale is staggering.
Yeah, over 140 forums, 1,100 exhibitors.
And it was anchored by a keynote from Chinese President Xi Jinping. But the real structural news from the event is the signing of WAICO, the World Artificial Intelligence Cooperation Organization, by 29 founding nations.
Right, and looking strictly at the facts presented in the dispatch, this is a profound geopolitical development. During the conference, Huawei also demonstrated its Atlas 950 SuperPod.
Yes, and they are claiming this hardware cluster is 6.7 times faster than NVIDIA's flagship NVL144 cluster.
Now, Aaron Rose is careful to note in the dispatch that Huawei's claim remains completely unverified by independent benchmarks. We have to be clear about that.
Unverified, sure, but the demonstration itself serves as a critical data point for the global market.
Absolutely. A domestic Chinese system claiming to vastly outperform NVIDIA's top-tier hardware represents the exact scenario U.S. export control architectures were explicitly designed to prevent.
And the contrast in global governance approaches right now is fascinating. The dispatch points out a very sharp dichotomy.
Yeah, on the very same day the WAIC conference closed in Shanghai, DeepMind's Demis Hassabis published an op-ed calling for a U.S.-led international AI watchdog.
This highlights the stark contrast between intention and institution. You have U.S. industry leaders calling for a voluntary international watchdog framework with a looming U.S., NSA, and CISA framework deadline set for August 1st.
Right. And on the other side of the globe, WAICO is no longer a proposal. It actually exists.
It has a physical headquarters.
Yes, a formalized signing ceremony and 29 member states actively participating.
The physical institution has been built while the West is still debating the framework. But let me propose a theory based on what's in this dispatch.
Okay, let's hear it.
It feels like we might be entirely distracted by the U.S. tech giants and these massive geopolitical institutions, while ignoring the most immediate threat to the established business models.
Ah, the open weight models.
Yes, the source material details what it calls the open weight countdown.
The release schedule for the end of July is an absolute gauntlet for closed AI labs.
DeepSeek V4 stable releases on July 24th.
Right. Then, Kimi K3, which is a massive 2.8 trillion parameter coding model, goes completely free to self-host on July 27th.
Both of these land just days before the U.S. August 1st framework deadline.
So we need to clarify the mechanics here for the listener, because right now, if an enterprise wants to use a top-tier model from OpenAI or Google, they pay a toll.
They pay per token, essentially a tiny fraction of a cent for every word or piece of data the AI processes.
Right, and if you process millions of documents, that toll adds up to a massive cloud bill.
The closed labs basically operate a digital toll bridge. Open weight models completely dismantle that toll bridge.
Yes, they do. When a developer downloads an open weight model, they're getting the actual trained brain of the AI.
They can run it on their own servers, locally, within their own data centers. They don't pay a per token fee to a tech giant. They only pay for the electricity and hardware they use to run it.
It seems like late July is shaping up to be a massive procurement decision point for enterprise developers.
I mean, if you are building a new internal tool for your company, why would you hook it up to a closed API and pay OpenAI or Google per token when you can just download Kimi K3 for free and host it yourself?
Exactly. If developers download these high-performing open-weight models, evaluate their enterprise workloads, and find that the free models perform just as well as the proprietary ones, the habit will stick.
Because once you build your underlying infrastructure around a free model, you aren't going to suddenly volunteer to start paying a toll to a closed U.S. lab.
The switching costs are way too high. Routing habits formed during these critical technological windows tend to persist for decades.
If capable, free alternatives become the default standard for developers. It drastically and permanently reduces the pricing power of closed models.
The premium that Google, OpenAI, or Microsoft can charge completely evaporates if an open-weight equivalent is 99% as good and costs nothing to license.
So what does this all mean when you step back and look at the entire board?
We are witnessing a massive, multi-front redistribution of power.
We are watching Google's most valuable asset, 2 decades of human behavioral data, being forcefully redistributed to third parties by European regulators.
But we are watching Oracle ruthlessly redistribute capital from 30,000 human employees into concrete server racks and gigawatts of power.
And we are watching global open-weight competitors attempt to redistribute market share away from the closed proprietary U.S. labs.
It is a complete rewiring of the technological ecosystem from the silicon straight up to the software.
But, amidst all this talk of gigawatts, autonomous ransomware, and global dominance, there is one final, deeply unsettling nugget hidden in the quick hits section of this dispatch.
Yes, I think it serves as a necessary grounding point regarding the real human impact of this rewiring.
The healthcare and scientific data point. We absolutely need to cover this because it genuinely stopped me in my tracks when I read it.
Yeah, so a new comprehensive benchmark called RADLE 2.0 was just released. It specifically evaluated advanced AI models used in radiology, so the tools deployed to read X-rays, MRIs, and medical scans.
And the benchmark found that these state-of-the-art AI models often deliver diagnoses that are incredibly confident, yet entirely incorrect.
They hallucinate, but they do it with absolute certainty, which is terrifying.
Furthermore, the dispatch notes that AI text detectors, the tools we rely on to verify human authorship, are currently completely failing on style imitation.
Specifically, the data shows that complex scientific writing is the most vulnerable to being undetectable. The AI can mimic scientific jargon so well that the detectors are effectively useless.
So the AI models are boldly diagnosing patients incorrectly, and our primary defensive tools to detect AI-generated, potentially fabricated scientific research are failing to spot the fakes.
We are rushing to integrate these models at machine speed across the global economy, driven by fear of missing out and massive capital requirements. Yet, the data shows they are demonstrating confident failure in the most critical, delicate areas of human knowledge.
And that brings us right back to our stage illusion from the beginning. We are so mesmerized by the sheer scale of the trick-building 4.5 gigawatt data centers, completely reshaping global economies, and marveling at the orchestration of these systems.
Right, staring at the wand.
But as we rush to hand over the keys to this heavy machinery, I want to leave you, the listener, with a question to mull over. As a tech giants battle for supremacy, are we blindly trusting this technology too much in the exact scientific and medical arenas where being confident but incorrect isn't just a software bug, but a literal matter of life and death? Let that sink in.